7 murderers, rapists, and robbers. They've been on the run since busting out of a maximum security prison.
I decided that I was going to escape or die trying. What else do I have to lose?
Yes, I do.
Your dream of what?
I dream of past events. I dream of my ex-wife. I dream of...
But always events outside of prison.
Yeah.
Prison doesn't exist in your dreams.
No. That's when I wake up, that's my bad dream there.
Imagine this for a second. You wake up every day before the sun. Not because you want to, but because prison trains you to. The clanging metal, the distant coughs, the echo of boots down concrete corridors, an orchestra of conformity. You've lived this morning 1,000 times before. It's taken over your memory, so much, in fact, that you've forgotten the taste of a barista-brewed coffee, or the sound of your kids playing softball in the park. You're inside the John B. Connally Unit, a maximum security prison just outside Fort Worth, Texas. A place designed not to be beaten, but to break you. To take even the most resilient man or woman and reduce them to an obedient, whimpering dog, and allow society to forget the atrocities that you have committed. But, for one reason or another, today feels different. Because today, those watchtowers wouldn't constitute your morning portrait. They'd be disappearing in your rear view. Today, you're getting out. You've rehearsed this moment in your head over and over. Every step, every sound, every second that could go wrong. You're not alone either. 6 other men are counting on you. Men who have made the same decision you have. Freedom or death. And in just a few hours, one of the most audacious prison escapes in American history will unfold in broad daylight.
Authorities in Texas are on the hunt for 7 prison escapees. The convicts have been on the run for more than 2 weeks. The 7 men were serving time for crimes ranging from murder and rape to child abuse and robbery.
This is the story of the Texas 7. In this video, we'll uncover exactly how these 7 men were able to escape one of America's toughest prisons, and ultimately, how the power of television led to their downfall. But before we can look into any of that, we need to take a closer look at the 7 and uncover why they were even behind bars in the first place. Before they were fugitives and before their faces flooded television screens across America, they were just inmates. 7 men, 7 lives, 7 very different paths that all led to the same place. George Rivas was the leader. Charismatic, confident, and deeply manipulative, he had a history of armed robbery and violent crime. But what truly set him apart was his ability to command attention. Inside prison, Rivas wasn't just another inmate, he was someone people listened to. Someone who spoke about freedom like it was a certainty, not a fantasy. Joseph Garcia was quieter, calculated. He'd been convicted of burglary and theft, drifting into crime through desperation rather than impulse. He followed Rivas not because he believed in him, but because he believed in escape. Donald Newbury was older than most, a career criminal who spent years cycling in and out of prison. He knew the system, knew its weaknesses, and knew exactly how boredom and resentment could rot a man from the inside. Patrick Murphy and Michael Rodriguez were products of addiction and instability, small-time criminals whose lives had been shaped by bad decisions, stacking on top of worse ones. Prison wasn't a shock to them, it felt inevitable. Larry Harper and Randy Halprin rounded out the group. Both were convicted of violent robberies. Both were hardened, angry and deeply bitter about the way their lives have unfolded. They were housed at the John B. Connally Unit, a maximum security prison near Kennedy, Texas. The Connally Unit wasn't an old, decaying jail. It was a modern facility designed with layers of security, controlled movement, and constant surveillance. Inmates were assigned work details. Guards followed strict schedules. Every gate required authorization. And every day, the inmates were reminded that the outside world was just a memory in this hellhole. By the dawn of the 21st century, most of these guys had spent years behind bars, living the same regimented life, at the mercy of guards, sirens, and bars. A routine grim enough to make any man dream of the impossible. The thing is, the catalyst doesn't start like a Hollywood drama. There's no one event that triggers the idea of something wild. Rather, it's the constant boredom that sends your mind racing. You see, when you're staring at the same four walls every day, your mind can't help but race, plan, or scheme. Small what-ifs become like a drug, giving you a dopamine hit every time you think of the audacious. And with so much time on your hands, well, materializing these wild thoughts become a whole lot more feasible. And for Rivas, there was only one thought on his mind: escape. But escaping a prison isn't like how it is in the movies. There was no way for the seven to dig through the walls of John B, and none of them had a tattoo with a hidden map of the prison's ventilation system on their back. No, their plan was much more, shall we say, patient. You see, prison is repetitive by design. Those four walls don't encourage rebellion, they encourage observation. Rivas was the first to speak it out loud, not as a fantasy, but as a possibility. He didn't start with blueprints or timelines. He started with questions. Why does that guard rush through his rounds? Why is that door unlocked during maintenance? Why does no one double check the control room during shift changes? The men began watching. Not obviously, not recklessly. They mentioned patterns, guard movements, shift rotations, moments of distraction so small they seemed meaningless, but added up to opportunity. They worked maintenance details, cleaning crews, jobs that allowed limited freedom of movement and access to tools. Nothing illegal, nothing suspicious, just enough to learn. Secrets passed quietly between cell bars, short conversations cut off mid-sentence, a look held a second too long. Every day, you watch a guard's back turn for a second longer than it should. There's a sick thrill every time you imagine the outside world, not as a memory, but as something reachable. You know you're playing with fire, but the fire feels warmer than being inside these walls. Fear and excitement blur together, and once the idea takes hold, it refuses to let go. But they weren't going to act rashly. After all, a chess master may wait a dozen moves before performing his initial plan. So, quietly, the seven waited in the shadows until the perfect time to strike appeared. It's 11:20 a.m. and everything you've been planning for weeks is about to unfold. You can feel your heart hammering in your chest, every beat echoing in the empty corridors of B Block so loudly you're sure the entire prison can hear it. The clanging of gates and distant shouts are just background noise to the storm building inside your mind. Today, this place, with its walls and rules and endless monotony, it's about to become irrelevant. You move silently with the others, your nerves coiled tight, adrenaline starting to burn in your limbs. Every step, every glance has been rehearsed. You know exactly where the guards will be, exactly how long it will take them to notice anything is wrong. And then it begins. In a sudden, violent blur, you and the others strike. Prison workers and guards are overpowered before they even have a chance to react. There's a frenzied moment of chaos. Shouts, struggles, the sharp clatter of dropped keys and tools. In minutes, it's done. You're holding uniforms, weapons, and ammunition. The keys to freedom. You see 14 handguns, a shotgun, an AR-15 rifle, and over 100 rounds of ammunition, all within your grasp. Every piece of equipment feels like a lifeline, a tool that separates you from the confinement you've hated for so long. The guards and staff lie unconscious, bound, trapped in the electrical room. You don't look back. Why would you? You can taste the outside air. Outside, a prison truck waits like an extension of the plan you've rehearsed countless times in your mind. You climb in, hands shaking but sure, and feel the engine roar beneath you. North is freedom. North is the unknown. You remember one detail that makes the impossible feel real. Your father, Raul Rodriguez, has provided the gateway car you're sitting in. Someone outside actually believes in your escape. Someone who's willing to help you cheat the world just for a few hours of freedom. As the truck rumbles away, every second stretches. The walls that contain you shrink behind, replaced by open road, sunlight, and the heady, terrifying taste of liberty. Your chest is tight, your muscles tense, but one thought dominates. You've done it. For the first time in years, you are free. But for some reason, freedom isn't quite what you imagine. At first, there's adrenaline, laughter, disbelief. Then, reality sets in. You need food, gas, clothes, more weapons. You're surrounded by civilians, people going about their day, unaware that some of the most wanted men in Texas are standing next to them in line. Grocery stores feel exposed. Gas stations feel like traps. Every gust of wind becomes a siren. Every passerby, an executioner. But you don't let any of that get to you. You don't have time, because now the real work starts. The group made their first stop at a Radio Shack in Pearland, robbing the store for much needed money. With these resources in hand, the group made their next move, with 4 of the 7 checking into a Kona lodge on the 19th. A few days later, on the 24th, they made their next move. One that would turn their great escape from a movie script into an utter tragedy. They walked into a Sports Authority in Irving, Texas. Inside, they bound and gagged every employee. They emptied the safe. They took at least 40 firearms and large amounts of ammunition, enough to turn themselves into a mobile arsenal. But someone outside noticed something was wrong. Police were called and made aware of the 7's presence. Officer Aubrey Hawkins arrived first, alone, but ready to deliver justice. He simply never had a chance. 4 against 1. He was ambushed almost immediately, shot 11 times, then run over as the men fled. He died shortly after at the hospital, aged just 29, a husband, a father. In that moment, everything changed. But when you're a fugitive on the run, time to realise the severity of your actions is non-existent. So, the 7 moved on, escaping the bright lights of capture in the shadows.
Welcome back. It's 9:23. They were known as the Texas Seven. 7 men who escaped a South Texas prison on New Year's Eve in 2000.
That began a 6-week manhunt in which the men were accused of robbery, even murder of a 29-year-old North Texas police officer, Aubrey Hawkins.
The manhunt for the Texas Seven became one of the most extensive in modern US history. Following their escape, authorities relied on every tool available, but a turning point came with the power of television. On January 20th, 2001, America's Most Wanted aired an episode dedicated to the fugitives, broadcasting their faces, names, and crimes to millions of viewers nationwide. The exposure proved critical. Within hours, tips began flooding in from ordinary citizens who believed they had spotted the men. One such tip would prove critical in the eventual capture of the group. You see, several of the fugitives had checked into the Coachlight Motel, an RV park in Woodland Park, Colorado, attempting to pose as missionaries. Loud Christian music intended to bolster the disguise instead drew attention, and neighbours contacted the authorities. Law enforcement acted swiftly. The El Paso County Sheriff's Office and Teller County deputies coordinated with a SWAT team to investigate the sightings. And little did the seven know that the prison walls were closing in again, much faster than they anticipated. January 20, 2001. Inside a stolen Jeep Cherokee, 3 of you sit. Garcia, Rodriguez, and Rivas. There's nowhere left to go. The air feels thick, and every breath is laced with the tension that only years of running can create. And then, there are headlights. Voices. Orders. A familiar setting for the convict. You're surrounded! Come out now! You know the rest of the world has been watching for days, but now they're watching here. They follow you from the RV park to a nearby gas station. The arrest isn't explosive. It isn't dramatic in the way the movies make it out to be. It's controlled, calculated, final. Nearby, Halpern and Harper are found in an RV. Halpern steps out quietly, more resigned than resistant, and surrenders peacefully. You almost feel something like relief flicker in the cold air. But then there's silence. A heavier silence. When they open the door to Harper's space, he's already gone. His body still and lifeless from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the chest. The standoff ended in his own despair. The weight of freedom he never truly grasped crushing him in the end. 4 of you are taken into custody. Handcuffed, exhausted, broken. But the story isn't over. 2 fugitives remain. In the open, a threat to society. On January 23rd, 2001, the FBI receives a new tip. Newbury and Murphy are hiding out in a Holiday Inn in Colorado Springs. Newbury and Murphy, none the wiser, are left completely exposed. The media descend on the hotel like vultures circling their prey. Reporters and photographers hover near every door, scanning faces, scanning plates, scanning for movement. Eventually, a strange arrangement unfolds. In the early hours of January 24th, a local TV anchorman is escorted into the Holiday Inn. On live television, Newbury and Murphy answer questions over the phone, their voices broadcast into living rooms across America. They speak with defiance, railing against the justice system that claimed betrayed them. Newbury spits out one line that will be replayed over and over. The system is corrupt as we are. Those televised minutes are a final act of desperation, a last attempt at telling a story no one will forget, and a confession that, even in capture, they still refuse to be silent. And then, quietly, the arrests happen. No gunfight, no chase. Just the heavy slide of handcuffs. Handcuffs that would ensure the 2 would never hear the soft sand of the ocean, or see the sunset without great towers obstructing their view ever again. And in the wait of this moment, you realise something. The roads you tried to outrun have cornered you. The nation that once cheered your audacity now watches you surrender. The myth of freedom dissolves into the cold, real weight of custody. You're surrounded. There is no escape this time. Your heart is pounding, heavy, painful, relentless. Every second feels stretched, elastic, impossible to leave behind. And in those final moments, you realise something simple and terrifying. Freedom wasn't the escape. Freedom was the chase. And the chase ended here. Following their capture, the surviving members of the Texas 7 faced a series of trials that would ultimately result in death sentences for most of the group. George Rivas, the ringleader, was the first to be convicted and sentenced to death. The other 5 surviving members, Michael Rodriguez, Donald Newbury, Joseph Garcia, Randy Halpern, and Patrick Murphy, were subsequently tried, convicted, and also sentenced to death.
Within a year and 3 months of being arrested in '93, I had 18 aggravated life sentences. I had more time than all mass murderers in the prison system that I know of. And
did it make you angry? Did you feel that this was out of proportion?
I know I belonged in prison. I was robbing, and I grew up mentally here in prison, and I recognize that I did commit the crimes. I should have been sentenced to prison, but I do believe that they went overboard. They took away all hope for me.
Michael Rodriguez chose to forego appeals beyond the mandatory review by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. After being declared mentally competent in a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation,
Because what they call the death penalty, I call freedom. One way or the other, I was going to have it.
he was executed by lethal injection on August 14, 2008, becoming the first of the remaining 6 to be put to death.
One of those men, Joseph Garcia, will die by lethal injection.
George Rivas was executed on February 29, 2012, Donald Newbury on February 4, 2015, and Joseph Garcia on December 4, 2018. Several of their remains, including Harper, Rodriguez, Newbury and Garcia, were interred at the Captain Joe Bird Cemetery. The remaining 2 members, Randy Halpern and Patrick Murphy, remain on death row at the Connally Unit of Texas Department of Criminal Justice in West Livingston, Texas, with no execution date set as of the latest updates provided in 2024. Both have faced delays due to legal and constitutional challenges. Murphy, who converted to Buddhism while on death row, received stays of execution related to his request to have a Buddhist priest present, citing First Amendment protections. Halpern's scheduled execution was stayed following evidence of anti-Semitic bias by his child judge. In November 2024, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals granted Halpern a new trial, with proceedings scheduled to begin in Dallas County on April 5th, 2027. These resentencing developments underscore the ongoing legal complexities surrounding the Texas 7, highlighting issues of religious freedom, judicial bias, and due process within the criminal justice system. Now, for the 7, the story may have ended at that gas station, but for the prison system, the work had only just begun. In the wake of the escape, prison administrators and policymakers undertook immediate reviews of security protocols. Gates, locks, and surveillance systems were upgraded. Officer training was intensified, and routine procedures were scrutinised to prevent any repetition of such a breach. After all, John B was a maximum security prison, and all it took was for a group of well-organised fugitives to run through the entire unit like a hot knife through butter. Beyond security, the incident also sparked broader discussions about prison conditions, rehabilitation, and the social and psychological pressures that drive inmates to extreme measures. Questions were raised about overcrowding, boredom, and the management of non-violent offenders, issues that had contributed to the desperation and cohesion of the escape group. The Texas 7 also entered the cultural and academic discourse. Their story is studied in criminal justice programs and referenced in media examinations of high-profile escapes. They become symbols of both the limits of institutional control and the consequences of criminal actions taken in desperation. However, the legacy is also a sobering one. The escape cost lives, most notably that of Officer Aubrey Hawkins, and left a trail of trauma for victims, families, and law enforcement officers. The notoriety of the Texas 7 serves as a stark reminder of the balance between security, human behaviour, and the risks inherent in the prison system. Ultimately, the story of the Texas 7 shows the power of a group of men with nothing to lose. The repetitive nature of prison life drove them to dream of something greater, and without the weight of responsibility, they were able to realise these dreams with relative ease. The escape remains one of the most infamous in American history, leaving a complex legacy of caution, reform, and public fascination.